All right, what is up, guys? Today we're going to learn my favorite mask transition hack. This is going to make your mask transitions a lot smoother, a lot less jumpy, and I'm going to show you this hack that was used in the mask transitions in this opening sequence you just saw. So we're going to use this one with the skyline of Chicago and my buddy Tyler's camera here, so let's dive in. All we have, let's first watch our raw clips. That's it. That's the entire raw clip. That's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames. If I extend it out any more than that, maybe we could extend it out a couple more frames. See how my movement had started to, now my movement went away. I was, shooting and driving. You don't want to do that. But I saw an opportunity to make a transition out of my friend Tyler's camera here, so I took it. And so I think if we extend it any more this way, it's not going to be good either. Yeah, see how it starts to move not in the center anymore? So that's why I want to keep this clip basically right there. And I'm going to remake these now, so they might not look exactly the same as the one you just saw. But nonetheless, I'm going to show you what the hack that I'm talking about is. What I'm going to go ahead and do is go down. This is a plugin. All this stuff will be linked, of course. So Pixel Film Studios. I'm going to go to the stabilizer, and if you're in Final Cut and you don't have this plugin, get with the program. What this is going to do is allow you to keep whatever you want, assuming your subject is, in the middle of the frame. Just keep it right in the middle of the frame. I always like to do all of these. Line something up, make sure it has nice contrast, and it doesn't really matter what it's lined up on. You just want to make sure that it's got some point of reference to make. And this actually might get screwed up. We're going to see what happens because this picture on his camera is going to disappear as the shot goes on. So let's see what happens. Oh boy. Okay, totally screwed that one up. So this is where we reset. See if we maybe can just do it on the entire camera. Perfect. So you'll be able to tell if it's screwed up. Click export. You can exit this window out now. And now our shot's perfectly stable because this is staying in the same. And you can click rotation as well. Sometimes that helps, sometimes it hurts it. But I like this. And now this is going to make it that much easier to make our mask perfectly stable. Amazing. So we want the shot to bounce back into the camera. We want this shot to play, and then it bounces back in. We'll copy and paste that, reverse the clip, cut off one frame, and make it fly back in there. Okay. To me, since we don't have any more to use, right? We've kind of already established that it's going to start to get off kilter as soon as if you put more of that shot in there. How are we going to make it so smooth? And this is where the freeze frame is going to come in. So what I like to do is click Shift H, and that's going to create a hold right here. And what this is going to do is extend out your shot, and then this is just a freeze frame. Now, what we'll do is we'll manually zoom this in as if it was just the shot itself being longer. This way, your transition is not so jumpy. It's not so quick. I see a lot of people making mask transitions that are just too jumpy and a little bit too forced looking. So this is the hack. This is how you fix that. So Shift H is gonna. You can also go up to. You can also just do manual add freeze frame. If you go edit, add freeze frame, it's Command F. So anyway. Now that we have this to work with, now let's go ahead and make our mask. I'm gonna start on the still image because this is where we can very clearly see the screen. Invert the mask, and maybe we can even undo the opacity just a little bit here so we can see where that screen is. So again, lock down all your points. Now we're going to go in reverse, and we're going to try to just use mostly the scale point and scale it to where we want. So again, it's almost more important that it remains the same shape rather than even fitting over what you're actually trying to run the mask through. So if it doesn't even fit the exact size of his camera screen, that's okay. That's actually okay, just so long as the movement looks smooth. That's actually more important. See, that's what I mean. That little off kilter right here to right here, I'm actually just going to move that back to where it was. So this way it doesn't look quite as off kilter. We go a couple more frames back, and we're not going to do the entire clip, and I will explain why in a little bit. Since this is the last frame here that we've automated, right? If we go one more frame to the left, now it's off. I'm not gonna automate this frame. All I'm gonna do is check the opacity at this frame and start it at 0. This way it understands that the thing to the clip that it's going to show through doesn't start until it doesn't start to come through until this shot. Then what we'll do is we'll go all the way to the end here and move the opacity all the way up. And then you can even go to some point in the middle of this and raise it more, just so this way it doesn't take so long for the shot below to appear. So maybe here we'll have it like all the way, almost all the way. And now we can put our shot below it, and we can see that our mask looks decent. Now what we'll do is we'll automate just this part here. Let's put it back to fit. Now we'll automate this entire clip, and we'll try to make sure that it matches this zooming in movement. So we go out, in, and we want to continue to go in until this clip is gone. We'll go to the transform. We'll just check all these. We'll go to the end, and we will zoom it all the way in. We'll try 600, and there you have it. Now that's still a bit jumpy, so there's a couple of different solutions we can use for this. The first one I would recommend is literally just make this longer. So you can see now we have a lot more to work with here. Now let's try automating it. See, lots of trial and error with this stuff, guys, but always try and think that you can make it look better. Unless you're satisfied, keep working on it. Now let's scale it up all the way, and we'll even put it like this, so it even maybe goes up a little bit, so it's more in the center. And we'll go back. We'll try 550, and that got it, basically. There's a little edge there you can see, but that's okay. So now let's watch it. Yeah, it's looking good. Now this inwards automation starts a bit abruptly because we've started it right here. So one way to resolve that is we'll actually add some more automation to the entire clip to make it more seamless. So I'm actually going to go to the first frame of this and create transform keyframes. Then go to where we had it at 100 before, which was here. And we'll just start to scale it in a little bit. So now the beginning of the clip starts at 100 and goes to 115% instead of starting at 100 here. And that looks to me a bit more believable. Cool. So there's a couple other things we'll do to sell this even more. So all this clip was a manual zoom out of the skyline, 24 to 70. So I was at 78 millimeter zoom in, and I wound up at about 24 zoomed out. And I guess I got a pretty steady hand for this clip right here, just this little bit. Obviously go here, check automatic speed. So since I shot this in 120, it slows it to 20%. Now it's pretty smooth. Let's see if we can get it even just a little bit smoother by doing stabilization. Awesome, now it's really smooth. You'd never know this was handheld. So since we're zooming in, we want this to also be going in. So now let's reverse this clip and we'll put it underneath. But we're not done yet. So remember when we put the opacity of the straw mask to start, let's go find where that starts. So the fill opacity starts here, and it's at 0 on this frame. So you don't need the clip underneath it to start until the next frame. So we'll put a marker here, M for marker in Final Cut. So just to check here, our fill opacity of the draw mask is at 0, and the very next frame is when it starts to shine through. So this is where our clip needs to start. So that's already looking pretty believable, but there's another thing we can do that's going to add a lot to it. And then there's a few other things we'll add just to blend the entire thing together. What we'll do is we want to make sure it looks like this is an image on his camera. That's the idea here. So we're going to use our transform again to scale the bottom clip with this top clip as it zooms in. So I'm going to scale this all the way out, and you have to be careful here because you don't want the edges to show. You know, right now you can see that that's the edge of the clip. So you have to be very careful not to do that. And then, of course, since the top clip is zooming in, you have to be careful that it never shows that this is, you know, not an image on his camera to sell it, right? So the way to best do this is once the mask has overlapped where the whole frame of the video ends here, you know that this clip needs to be scaled up all the way at this point. So we'll scale this to 100 at this point, because anything past this point, the edges are being revealed. So that looked a bit jumpy. And I think it's just because this bottom clip is moving too much. So it's scaled in a bit too much. So we'll actually make it zoom out even less. And I'll scale this. I'll make it start more scaled towards 100. That's pretty good. That's still a bit jumpy, but we're looking pretty good. And I'm not working with any music right now, so normally I'd be making these things happen in time with music. So that would also help you to, of course, sell the effect even more. I also don't like that this goes down. You'll notice that it seems to be bouncing down right now. And that's just because we've automated it to do that. So if you go to just your position and you go to the end, you can just untick this one. And now it should just go straight. All right, so this is looking pretty good so far. There's a couple other things we'll do to make this even more believable. Number one, you'll notice that like you can kind of see that building there. And then the camera moves forward, but the building doesn't like want to move with it. So you can even go and say, wait, let's have the building go with it, and just kind of manually do it frame by frame. And it'll work because, again, we already have that last frame set in stone. Of course, this is zooming in, right? But I don't actually want to speed this up. That is one option, because then I'm not in the proper frame rate anymore, and I don't think it would look as good. You want to stay in the proper frame rate as often as you can. Or the proper playback speed for that frame rate, which would be 20% for 120 FPS clip. It's just going to look the best. So what I'm actually going to do is scale this bottom clip in even more than it's already being zoomed in. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, we've already scaled it to 100% here. Let's start to scale it past 100. We'll have the clip end right about there. And let's see what happens if we even zoom it past 100, up to 140. Again, the goal here is to get it to match as closely as you can to the camera and make it look as if it's on that camera screen. Still a bit jumpy, and music would certainly help, but that looks pretty good for now. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and get our CC lens effect. This is another plugin for Final Cut, and this is gonna like warp the edges of our clip. You can see the preview it's giving you, and there's different ones you can use. But I like this when I'm doing a mass transition a lot of the times, especially if I'm doing a freeze frame, that being the hack here. because this is a freeze frame, you know, it looks a bit fake. It looks like, you know, you can almost tell that the video stopped, even though, you know, you can't see his hands anymore and it's zooming in pretty quick. There's a way that there's things you can do now to sell this even more. So first things first, what we'll do is we'll combine both of these into a nested clip. And let's go ahead and throw one of these CC lens effects on it, and then we'll make our adjustments. So I don't like his face being like warped too much like that. So we're going to start it at 0, put a keyframe here. And then as we're getting into this, you know, we're basically at the end. Let's try to just adjust it up a bit like that. Now you can see the edges start to get warped through. Maybe we'll even increase the warpage a little bit. You know, we'll make it start doing that like right there, and then we'll make sure, look, we actually don't want it to go from 64 over to 53, so we'll increase it even more. That's kind of cool. It's a little too warped maybe for my liking. So maybe let's just X that one out. Yeah. I like that. And we'll also do the same thing with the bottom clip. We're going to use a different one. And this is just more of a creative decision. You don't have to do this. This is a different one. It sort of distorts the inside separate from the, you know, the entire distortion amount. So this is another way. The reason I'm doing this here is not to alter the way that the clip looks necessarily, but to sell the effect more. So now I'm able to manipulate the shot in a way that's not using the transform tool, but it still like kind of is. So we're gonna start this at 0, right? And then as the shot goes on, we will grow it and we'll make the edges warp like that. So it almost looks like it's going with the warp of the other shot. And that sells it a bit more. Just makes it look that much more believable, kind of trippy. And we'll also mess with the inside distort amount. So again, since we want the shot to become more zoomed in, we'll start this all the way out. And you'll notice if you start it all the way out like that, it sort of does this weird thing on the bottom. So we'll make sure by the time it gets to here that that's gone. And then as the shot goes on, we can lessen this inside distort amount. So on the example, I actually think I had the effect set to the opposite way, where I had the inside distort amount start at 100 or at 0 and then increase to 100, meaning the building kind of stayed in the same spot and sort of wound up like this. But after just doing it, I almost like what I just did more. No, I think I like that. I just think it needs to be scaling in more, right? Because the camera continues to scale in here. Right. Let's go ahead and do that. A few more things to do with this. First things first, let's go into here and let's feather our mask a little bit. It's one thing I didn't do before. Let's grab an adjustment layer. We'll go grab our TKY camera shake. Throw it on here. And this is a plugin. These are just settings you sort of want to mess with. I normally don't mess with the shake speed, but I mess with these two. So let's make it a little bit less, and let's just see how it looks. And look at that. It sold it just a little bit more, because now the entire thing here is shaking just a slight bit left and right. Of course, the example video you saw included a color grade and a couple of other stylistic effects. You can throw on a color finale really quick, even though I did use DaVinci to color this for now we can just throw on color finale just to see what this should look like. Okay, so now we have our Rec 709 footage. And we can see that the transition happens a bit abruptly in there. And one thing we can add is some kind of an effect to our bottom clip that is going to make that transition between his camera screen and the building a little bit less abrupt. For this, I'm going to grab an Ezra Cohen overlay. This is it's just a very simple blue flash. It's like 7 frames long, and I use this in basically every video that I edit. Not because I want things blue, not because I want a flash necessarily, but it just is a great, very clean, very simple way that you barely even notice that transitions shots together. So all I'm going to do is put that in the bottom of this, so you can only see it in the camera. And this actually may be better to just put over top of the entire thing. I think that's what I did for the example, but let's see what this looks like. Yeah, so it almost looks like now he's taken the picture and it's changed. See what it looks like over top. Nope. See, that's a bit distracting then. I actually think I like it for this example for whatever reason. It's better underneath like that. And yeah, just like that. That is the hack that is going to make your mass transitions look that much more believable, that much more clean, not as jumpy like the ones that I've seen all the time that people are using. They're kind of forcing a mask to happen over the span of like 2 or 3 frames, when in reality it's just going to be a lot smoother if you give it, let's just go and see how many frames we added with that hold. And we can see. Yeah, so we've added a whole ton of frames just by having that freeze frame happen at the end and then making the mask on the freeze frame and then backtracking into our actual clip. So yeah, that's all for this video. If you've enjoyed this, check out the rest of my channel and consider subscribing and leave a like, comment what you thought below if this was valuable, and let me know what other tips and tricks you guys want to see, of course, down below in the comments. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.